Hello, welcome to Thank you for coming. First, we begin today by acknowledging the Turrbal and Yagara people, traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, and paying respect to their elders past and present. We recognize their continued connection to the land and acknowledge that these grounds have always been a place of teaching. We would also like to extend respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander. Thank you so much all for coming. There's been a lot bigger turnout than we were expecting, and so definitely appreciate that. So my name is Rich Williams. I'm one of the Glass editors for 2025, and I'll be moderating this debate. Let's hear about the two people sitting right next to me. So we have I've the wonderful privilege of hosting two candidates today. We've got a Taylor Griffin from the second year law student, and we also have Obi, who's got Sebastian Hay from Momentum, who is a first year business student. Also, just coming on, this is very exciting. It's always being like emceeing and like getting the crowd's energy. So that was very important. Thank you so much. So the debate that's currently going to be happening today, where it's designed to give you insights into the person candidate and to help you make an informed decision during election time. We'll be asking the candidates all the relevant questions, and by jumping onto the live stream or on our Instagram, which is our Glass Instagram, you can ask some. We'll be monitoring that over here, as well as print. And Chamberlain will ask some at the end. Each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes to answer each question, and there will be a bell, which will be our timekeeper, which will be great. And once they'll be given a bell at 30 seconds, and then once the 2 minutes is up, our timer keeper will call time. At the end of the debate, I'll also send an invitation to have a chat. We do have some free bagels at the back, and we also have some soft drinks at the time. There is an important thing here that I have to mention, which is any verbal audience participation will not be allowed. Any cackling or yelling will not be tolerated. I would ask you to leave. So, if you do want to make any commentary or anything, let's go on to the live stream. I believe I covered everything on that. So I think we'll get into what we're looking at today, which will be the debate. So we'll start off with some prepared questions from Glass, and then we'll get into some big audience questions. So let's start with the general introductions of these things. So tell us about your ticket, what are your $2 and collect cards. Let's start with Glass and work for that.
What the email is this a good one? I'm not saying publishing. That's completely fine. I think versus speaking on a very passionate student, we not have to share personal values, share like humanity. So we want to see a field that is focused on improving the day-to-day lives of students. Question. Yes, is increasing business side. That's the part. I think everyone these simple values that is hard work, showing up, honesty, getting that value back nice and back. And it's simple goals. And the first goal that I'm going to talk about is the work this year. I can see working with universities, bringing those meetings, building that relationship with a previous relationship probably wasn't as strong as it could have been. I think this year really marked partial improvements. But it's all about diplomacy and working strongly. That I think you can't just command things, you work. So the things that we all want to achieve, all the teams here all want to achieve, requires more money. And I think the current budget situation that we've got means that we can stronger in working with workers. Things like an extra campaign, things like increasing parent campaign, all those things, all those extra activities sense that it's very great to start as much as possible. And then, but what sense working with channels that we've established and continuing that. And I really strongly believe that ourselves in the best position we can and that to respond. So every member of our team is involved. It's great. Really strong part of the team. So that's what my team's back and see.
Just double checking. Hold your mics a bit close to them now. Is better. Yes, wonderful. We'll just double check. Ask a question of hand. What's the colours of your teams? Purple. Right. Wonderful. Perfect. Right, on to the next question. I remember if yes, what party you aligned with, and how that party's political values influence your presidency. Go the other way around. So that's what we go with Taylor.
Thanks, Reece. I'm with the Labour Party and Labour Party for the last 3 years. I strongly believe that our values as a party. But I will just say, I also mentioned that Peter is also. But the values that we represent, personal values, we're not to push the Labour agenda anymore. We're about pushing forward the student agenda. So we are influenced by those values, but we are not determined to push those values in the sense that giving them to the people. My team and I have strongly agreed about working about the rest of my team. For example, spoke to the food bank. We've got Nick, who's done amazing work in the space, and Linda and Bee that have done amazing work in their respective portfolios. So yeah, me and I and like party strong.
Thank you. Thank you.
Should rush script. I'm actually very proud to say that and one word. I do want to say that it's no time globally we're seeing rise in far-right extremes of rhetoric. And to have 2 candidates from social democrat to the culture that to people highlight TUT students. And I think that is something that bit of pride. Regarding values, I will go into the same values that took me at the party. There's values on progressivism, there's values on unionism. That's the strong belief in a welfare system that enriches the society.
Well said. Now, call me a bit of a cynic, but what is the point of a student union? That's last time. Hey,
What's the point of student? Look, student union is the same point that any union exists to counterbalance the massive force of these unions. It exists to advocate and push for student representation. There is an immediate imbalance between the university and students. The university, students don't. We're pretty young. We work together. We can push for things that we need, things that we need to better their lives, things that we need to prosper. That's the point of view. That's the sort of direction of progress skill at UT.
Well, I would agree with much of what Caleb said. A union is all about having a strong focus on pushing against that power imbalance, which we've all faced. We've all seen this year. We've seen many universities, but particularly UT, really strongly working against their unions. And I think strong unionism requires a strong backing of the members of students who every day, they support us and they come to our events and they strongly support us with their membership. But again, student unionism is all about bringing forward those values, those rights, being able to look at the advocacy that's important. The academic world is as best as it can be. That community makes it look like a fun space, which is really the advocacy and food bank, those sort of things. Those things we mentioned in our efforts.
thank you. So let's talk about more of the issues facing students. Cost of living has been highlighted as one of the most important issues facing students. What solutions would you provide as president of the Guild to address these problems?
It's a really good question. So I do see that cost of living and the housing prices are the biggest facing students at the moment, and I think the reason why they are such big problems is because they take away time from students to be able to study. And I strongly believe that education is the strongest thing one can do to improve their well-being in their life. And I think other countries work really hard to go to university. That's and those are the values I take with me now. but understanding that education is really, really good. So things that we've restarted is things like helping people with their daily budgets. So we've expanded currently before we bank from you could previously use it every quarter, we've got down to like those sort of things, and those help people with their budget. And the initiatives that we do this year as well, aim to do the same thing. The major thing I've been talking about several times with that 40% SAP, we can support those governments. More things like the food bank. I know we're talking about that so much, but those are the things that really, really help people. Those are direct welfare. Things like the regional parking exam batches. That's one that I did this year. That went a long way that people to come to university to their exams. That's better than their household budgets. Those sort of things. Direct welfare is what we're all about. And this year we'll do it again more. Things like taking tax as well. Bringing meal program. Those are cool.
Thank you. And
It's very cost of living is the greatest issue facing students at the moment. Those issues are disproportionately impacted by the cost of living. For example, studying one thing does feel to actually work the evidence. That's fine for me. People average, use it. And so it progresses very quickly. It's the 6 interests. Yeah, very lucky. Amazing that you put experience. Only up in 3 days. It's only in 2. Actually, it's on the map on this. 40,000 students at UT without the airport. They've earned 4-year degrees, and you evenly distributed access to the what? Student gets to use it once in the middle of the cost of living crisis. That's not should be. Look at things like saving the said we have to choose between our youth and having
well, thank you so much. So we're talking about how you solve this cost of living issue. Brett will start the handling of the SAT funding campaigns. Can you talk about how you go about securing that funding?
Sorry, Andrew. Sorry.
Look, the Management said that they're going to continue to fight for 40% tax, and I think that's just outrageous. As already said, if you notice, last year the federal government passed legislation stating that all global organisations need to be receiving 40% SAP from the university. That's a guarantee for law. UT Guild failed to get it. Prison being considered too disorganised to be allowed to have it. He says it's going to continue the fight. He says it's going to get it next year. There's already a transition plan published on the Department of Education for takers from the UT. They don't intend to give 40% SAP to the Guild next year. In 2027, they intend to give everything above the current 27% SAP to a newly built student organisation, undercutting the Guild for doing that SAP. We don't accept that. So we need to provide Chancellor isn't enough. We'll have 1,000 students who will show the university that we're not going to accept that. We're not going to take that. We're going to take groups that will be rightfully held by law.
I think you're really oversimplifying the situation. Yes, we are entitled to 40% SAP. But as you know, transition plan allows universities to demand that they don't receive, their students don't receive that funding. It's a lot harder a fight than you're making it out to be, and I've known that because I've done the meetings, I've spoken to people there. It's a lot harder than what you're saying it's going to be. So good luck if you try and do that. But what I will say, yes, we are entitled to that under law, and many universities like La Trobe, like UT, there are many organisations who are filing it out to fund the 40% SAP. It's not as simple as saying we're going to demand it. It requires a lot of diplomacy and working with the partners in the university to support that percentage. It's a lot harder than just saying we're going to demand it. You need to actually do the work, and that's what we've been doing. The meetings that we've secured have gone a long way into re-establishing that partnership, which previous Guild administrations had taken away. So we've done a lot of hard work this year at re-establishing those connections, make sure that we have a proper partnership. And these are people who ultimately do not want to see us succeed, and we've made that point clearly to them that they can't get rid of us. We're here to stay, and that we are fighting for it because ultimately what we're fighting for is the benefit of all students. It's not just about me, it's not about each of us, it's about the whole entirety of the student body. And we are fighting for is making sure that everyone has the benefit of that additional funding. I make it really point because all the things that we want to do, all the things we want to see require additional funding. I make a big point about it because it's it's the gateway to all of those things expanding. So it's a lot harder than what I think you're making it out to be. It's not as simplistic. I think it's a fight, requires diplomacy, and I think more students are at the moment. I think our patients is one of the worst ones. I hope we produce also address that. The traditional thing, we had to get a freedom of information report. We did that. So we're on a different field, a tomology. So we're starting at the bottom rung, working it out. It requires from that's what I've started. I'll continue to do.
Thank you. That's I think we'll go with we've got some more questions asked, and we'll go to audience questions. So I'll just ask, the Guild is limited in its revenue streams. How is it diversified?
A great question. I love this question. So I would love to see the Guild move away from the majority of its funding coming from that. It's like expanding the businesses. I would love to see them pay maybe an arcade. These are all examples that I've been speaking to people about last year. But of course, that requires more funding to start those projects underway. It requires more capacity in that team, which we've done through investments in our staffing. But I think we really need to focus more about expanding that revenue and that revenue base and looking at things that we can do. But also, I think primarily it has to come from the students, and we have to think about things that students use and that businesses that we can import to start doing today. So, yeah, things like cafes, laundromats, arcades, film centres, yeah, those sort of things. I think student first, student employed, and what things that students can use. We're going to have more businesses and things that students will actually spend their money on. So that's a plan. I think that will require a whole field response to like, GPS. I think it requires a president to mandate that. And one thing I've really spoken to about GPS is an internal committee. So I think I got the start of the process of that. I understand that probably won't be opening up by next year, but in that process started, that's all I'm at.
Well, I think keeping student bars and student hands is a great start to that. How far is it? Need to diversify income streams and actually have what we spend less time building good relationship and more time advocating for students actually getting students. We have to consider
Well, thank you so much. So final one from us. The Guild has eventually had a bit of an engagement issue. How would you increase awareness of the Guild?
Union motions when so many people at UT don't know what the Guild and everyone's. So it should be part of your welcome kit. You should probably have UT telling your Guild, which they do as a footnote. It should be on blast. Culture. Okay, that too. Understand that the Guild just like advocacy, but of their own students and students engaged.
I think the engagement that we need to be having is targeted. We've done a lot of the events this year. It's like the exam support and all of those welcome week events. They're really well attended. But a lot of our smaller events we've seen a trouble with engagement. I think to your point, we have done a lot of work with the mailing list. We've got our social media has gone up by 90%. So a big percentage has increased. So we have done a good work in our engagement team, and we've also had an extra person in terms of placement and social media content as well. So those sort of engagement posts, I think, but it's a turnout to events. I think no matter who is struggle, not struggle, but it's a hard process to get students to come to events. We need to have the right event, the targeted events, and the right people behind that. So my candidate is Charlie, she's an amazing person. So we've, from the key feedback we received this year is a food truck night, so that's something that we've promised. But more targeted events, I'd say more events specific to people that we want to bring out, but also all these events cost money. Like a token might be like lots of money. We need to really consider that one is going. We have an amazing events on board. So it's about having and we have a strong scene calendar of events already. I think it's to make sure that the events that we do have are the correct ones. And one thing that I've really wanted to do next year is an events and programs working party. That's another committee internally that will see, I guess, a more streamlined approach to what events we are doing and what needs to be done with marketing. And for this event, we've also got Eva Air to support the election, which is another amazing way that we can get sponsors on board. So I think more targeted.
Wonderful. Now we're going to move on to our audience questions. So much for all of those questions. Have a little water break while I read this. So give me a moment. Okay, wonderful. So our first one is going to be directed at you, Seb. Last year, you were heavily involved in a coup by attempting to rewrite the Guild's constitution, by bypassing students and going directly to university. Do you believe this was an abuse of power? And if so, how would you ensure that constitutional changes are always student-led and not university-led?
Look, I think this is something that I've been paying to really clarify the situation. And look, I've always maintained that my integrity is really important to me. I've always said that I made a mistake, I'll be the first person to claim and rectify that issue. I think that's not something that I'm overtly proud of, but I think the advice that I acted on was the incorrect advice, and I've made that very clear. And which is why this year we've gone through a different channel. We've worked through constitutional lawyers, we've employed a group, we've worked internally to make sure that we have the proper processes in the Guild that we can build a better constitution. And we're currently at the process now, we've got student feedback on that, and we're about to go through a second phase onto the proper analysis and proof phases. So, look, what I will say, that wasn't the leader I wanted to be. I made that mistake. It's something that I've learned a lot from. It wasn't a great time in my personal life. But I think, hopefully, people can see that I've made a lot of work to be as clear about that as possible, not to hide behind walls or anything like that. And I will be the first person that can make a mistake and own it. Try and rectify that as much as possible. So I think we are going. I think we can recognise the constitution needs to change, and we've made a lot of attempts to fix it this year. We've made steady progress, and I think we are adhering to the proper checks and balances of the constitution.
Thank you. Do you have any sort of
Absolutely. In such first with the secretary, he was further together, most of you. Actually get a cover of the student union to the university exists to counterbalance Sensei's learned discussion. We're in the middle of a constitutional reform process that recently. Anyone read it? It's the content thing again. It's removing student power. It's consolidating student power from SRC to this action with the removing student power from the SRC, consolidating. So Sensei's learned lesson, but this constitution is getting so much feedback saying that the front of the student.
Thank you. So there was a follow-up question to the answer as well. Given that this was done without student support, why should students trust that you won't also put university interests above their voice? It's okay, I might just set the answers, but
I've always been the first person to admit that that wasn't a great moment, and I think the first week of the role, you can be quick to accept advice that you think, and I on that. To answer your point, the new constitution that we, I think, like it needs to be. I think we're really strong to make sure it is a document that works to govern for all of us. I don't think that there are too painfully like that. I think we're making it. We're not construing it in a way which is it's just not quite the it will make it a zero prices of the board. There isn't much of a change there from the current way. There's still been student majority on the board. There's still been student. And as I said, this is a period where we collect feedback and then we'll go and refine draft, taking on board that feedback. But to answer your question, I have made it my mission to be as open and frank as I take a lot of chance to today, but also being present at boards and events, spoken students directly, I've made myself really valuable. And I think that's same people suffering into being present about listening out there. We promise to write coffee chats next year so we can come through emails and speak to students directly, those sort of things, but also just being open about that. Never watch Charlie Macklin.
Thank you so much. And do you have anything to show? Just very
That's just making up with some I'm SRC, using SRC, well, I could have had email and retention. Yes, sure, it still stays in the board. It takes away the SRC, removes those checks and balances. It's still on a front district.
And like I said, you can provide that feedback and we can make amendments to draft.
Sorry. So we're going to move on to another question. So Progress is making a big claim about streaming % of the SAT funding in this pre-printing instance. You also made a claim that you found the guild running 70 county. Practically, how will you be able to deliver these responses? Any money will also send out.
So we haven't said that we have a claim with the 1,000 actually stated that that we said $100,000 in 2020. Public information, go to the Charities Commission website, find that. In terms of I don't get the sense that that isn't true. Yeah, those fellows get the statements. That's obviously said anyway. It's just reprinting. It's not going to say something else. It's going to say that you navigate that the country somewhere else. You're already paying tens of thousands of dollars to study at university. Why should you pay $10 to print any pages? Ridiculous.
Well, I've never said it's unattainable. I just said it's just those difference in priority. You would have to cut something to fund that. So what would you cut? Obviously, food management, advocacy. You have to cut something to fund that. And you're not going to get good such a way. You're not going to get such a so there's still be financial. If I could just explain that deficit. So yeah, $700,000 is a big number. But that is an outlier in terms of our deficits. And this year we're actually on track to hit a very small deficit or a very small surplus. But those that'll be information we made public at an annual general meeting, just like those finances for last year. But generally, our deficits have been 100,000. But the 700,000 deficit last year was because we made improvements to our team, which was a key point at making sure we had the proper governance to receive that 40% sum. So years back, there was a report from Deloitte about a university which they commissioned about the guild, and said that they put our financial and governance management was not going up. So we put in money to make sure that we had the proper staff on board and do that. We've made improvements to things like the food bank. We've swapped the rooms around, that'll cost money. And that's we've made infrastructure developments from that. We've made governance and staffing from that. So we also had like HR was privatized. Now we have that on board, so we had to bring in staff to manage that. So that was a one-off deficit. We're on track to hit a smaller deficit this year or a small surplus. Economic management has improved. We've made strides in our commercial as well. So I think it's just a matter of priorities. We could advocate for that. I just don't think it's the right thing to do, considering that we're much more different.
Just have a follow-up question from that as well. What exactly does overhauling the food bank look like? Like would you say for overhauling? What does the stats do that?
Just do it as a part increase accessibility to 105 days a week. Through to obviously total free access that would just to relax restrictions on access to one throughout the day. We don't want it to be a situation where 70 people are only open to 9 and then shut by 11. It should be open longer. Should be able to take off. So that looks like this child safe. We must live.
Well, this is one big thing that we've done a lot of work in this year. So, like I said, we've moved the rooms. It used to be downstairs, now it's up here. We made sure that it was fortnight out every week. The reason why we have those capacity mandates is because simply we don't have staff to do that. So we're working really hard now to get independents and volunteers to start that. We have amazing to work really hard at starting the food bank. Now, we've actually increased budget this year, so each month the food bank was at $6,000. We've now raised that to $9,000 for the remainder of this year, and that'll go a long way into more food on the shelf. The problem that we've been facing this year is that as many businesses have known, that the cost of actually getting increase as well. So we're not getting the same cost per unit. It's actually now gotten worse. So we had to put more money to get the same results. So it's just about priorities, I guess, prioritizing. Make sure we have money on board that we'll see food bank go further ahead. But I think the wording overhaul suggests that there'll be a big change. I don't think you'll see a big change if you're elected. I think we'll see a continuation of the work that we've presented this year actually bear into fruition. I think we'll said that we want to expand the budget. That obviously requires a priorities to be met. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So the next question has been your ticket has been accused of stealing other guild members' initiatives, breaking them as your partner. How can students trust your leadership if you can't even demonstrate originality within your institution?
I've spoken to those people directly back up, and I've apologized for the way they were received. But I really strongly say that we've never ever changed trying to make credit on those particular policies. All we've been saying is that they have been really, really popular and successful initiatives. And I really admire the hard work that took from concessions to delivery. I've seen that firsthand. I've seen that. Every time I take credit for that, I understand what it's like. Once I do it, I can't do that. Admire the hard work. What we're saying is that we will put money aside next year to see those projects happen again. Now, obviously, if the people who are representing those particular followers do not want to do that, that's not into the discussion. But I think students have said that they want to see those popular initiatives continue, and we're putting money aside. I'm not saying we should credit for those works. Absolutely. Never want to do that. We're just saying that we'll have seen how popular it is and the ways that continues. That's I think what the parts of that wording was about. I think may have been true to that point, but now hoping those people directly and apologize for the way that may have come across. That definitely wasn't my intention.
Just a quick note. It's a matter of working. To get that experience. It's a bit contradictory. Thank you. So we've got another audience question. This one's for Seth as well. You once said that in the matter of party lines, you would work for the current Labor governments for adult crime of time. How do you justify hundreds of Aboriginal boys and girls across Australia having their basic human rights? Do you stand that injustices made by the government? Do you stand for
Sorry, what's the question? What are they saying?
I think you once said the amount of pylons would extend the current company and at the time, and how do you justify the operation, SPM rights from it, and you stand injustice sentiment?
I don't agree with that particularly. What I said is that unfortunately the Labor Party at the time and still continues to believe that the Alpine laws are correct ones. So the party said that they will vote for them because they won the election. I don't agree with that. I think the laws are completely wrong. I've actually spoken in Parliament about those against the laws. So I think that's very correct thing to say. I don't believe in those laws. I'm very much against the whole thesis of those laws. I think it's just completely wrong. I think we should not be locking up children. I think that it's things like education which really make sure that people are getting a better start in life. And I think children are exactly where it needs to go. So I really am really dismayed made that in that assertion. Really not about my understanding. That's true at all.
Absolutely, thank you. Do you want to say that?
I think the general as the other way, it's part of our force that we should be trying to see greater change in climate change. So the idea of time kind of mind, so it's just a bit much.
You. The next question is to either of you, so I'll start with that. It's also a Glass question, which I very much appreciate. Glass magazine is the largest student magazine in Queensland. How will you ensure it continues as a bastion of student creativity? Furthermore, Glass is meant as a tool of accountability for the guild. Will you work with Glass to be transparent in this?
So I think Glass is an institution to large functioning student to report on students, also student and what SRC recommends. So we absolutely push for a more transparent guild. We work with Glass to make sure that students know what's going on in the guild, they know the state of affairs, and they know what's going on with each. You wouldn't have the meeting. Say these markers out there.
I'm a big supporter of Glass and I'm a big avid reader of Glass. I think all the members who are currently there are amazing people and I work really, really closely with them this year. You know, like their duty to come to the council meetings, but we've made sure that our relations with them are very smooth so that they can get them in straight away and the recordings and those sort of things, which is my duty as secretary. But yeah, big believer of Glass. I think they do amazing work. You know, they do really good schools and that's a massive advocate for it. I think work harder against next year, but I think there is a point where SIC and Glass have to be a little bit separate because, of course, we're an independent organisation and be dictated by what the SIC thinks it does. But yeah, I mean, there's already money aside for you next year. We work really hard. Make sure the Glass events are all attended and push forward their social media marketing as well. So I think no change there. I think we'll be Glass. We support it, love it. That's about it.
Thank you so much. I also get some a follow-up question from Nick Williams. How can Glass be true to its duty of holding the guild accountable if their funding is tied to the guild? Class access.
Like in terms of it comes from SAP as well.
Yeah, I would imagine that's.
Well, it's actually the way it operates now. You get your money and then we don't tell you what to do with it. We just tell you that you need money. Go ahead, pretty much. Like there isn't any way that we dictate the spending of the lines. We just ask you to give us a reporting, an accurate reporting of what the money's spent on. That's pretty much the way it goes now. So, usually a massive change to that.
Okay. Yeah. Right, wonderful. This is got one for it's not a direct one, so so I'll start with you, Pedro. Both of you are making efforts to revitalize and like this location campus culture. What actionable steps are you taking to achieve that this is different from any previous SI?
Yes, so we think that this year's good to entertain to try and revive themselves. To progress to treat clubs as well. Yeah. We actually went up to have that target. Interest. Achieve that.
Well, I think hindsight is amazing. Like, of course, we've tried all different ranges of events and see what the student or students actually attend. It's a great thing to say that they haven't been attended, but the thing is, you won't know unless you try. That's the thing we've done is we've tried. We've done a whole series of different events, and of course, each depends on the officers who are doing those particular pilots, what things they want to see. But we have to work closely with clubs. They're an organisation that we really support. Of course, we manage as well. So that's actually think that we agree with that to work closely with the clubs to see alternate events, to see things like our main working directly with the clubs. See directly with that. Those sort of things I think part of the avenue where motion already engaged. It's about having that market. But we're engaging with it, hasn't changed. We continue to have it.
Okay, so we did get a question for you. So yesterday, Elevate has announced the candidates will be using, including Progress and Left Action in Palestine. Elevate has noticeably left out Momentum as a previous Elevate candidate in 2025, who has worked with many of the current Elevate candidates. Why have they decided not to back?
Well, I think that's a decision for them, and I think that question's probably more part of it. We did better response from them. Very many discussions. The original plan that we had was that I was going to run candidates against Elevate, and then I was going to run candidates against me. I strongly believe that all the members of that team are really good, diligent members. They show up to SIC meetings and have cordial relations with them. I think they work really strongly with the want to represent. So, look, I will say it was a bit of a shock, but that's ultimately a decision that they made. That's one that they'll have to explain. I'm not going to buy it. It is what it is. They've chosen a different person for the role. I disagree. The man I'm seeing is students.
Thank you. And for a response?
I just think it's interesting. I don't want to speak for long. That's my position as an observer. It's interesting to see particular contractors who have worked together over the last year choose not to look and they choose to work someone else. That's as well about the state.
Thank you. Else? That's a lot of questions today. So thanks so much all for coming. And where's that word? I have a blur. Thanks so much for all coming. It's been really appreciated. Yeah, exactly. It had to happen. Someone sort of was about. Yeah, thank you so much for coming for the 25. Essentially, it's very personally coming. There is still food upstairs and drinks at the bar. If you'd like, you can just talk to our candidates as well. Probably if they stick around, of course. But yeah, I think that is everything. So yeah, really appreciate it. And can I get a big applause for helping? Thank you. Thank you.